think we can start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this press conference on the Joint EU Resettlement Programme. I'll give the floor straight away to our first speaker, our Parliament Rapporteur, Rui Tavares. You have the floor.
Thank you, Natalia. Good morning, everybody. First of all, let me thank Commissioner Malmström and Ambassador Mikkelsen for being here representing the Commission and the Council. And this is not very common for us to organize a joint press conference. And I'm very happy that we could do it and that we could do it on this file during the Danish presidency. Well, by this time, it's fair to say we've been working on this file for the last 2 years. It actually started during the Swedish presidency and the tenure of your antecessor, Commissioner Jacques Barrot, and we've worked hard at getting a compromise during the last 2 years. So we've heard each other many times on resettlement, and we know about this file, and we know some of the technicalities of this file that you may have the need to ask for clarification. But as many times in the European Parliament and in the legislative work of the Union, now is when the true work starts. I've had this impression when we first voted the report 2 years ago. Now, when we are close to adopting the legal act this afternoon, but now is where the true work starts, and that's where contacting the European civil society is also very important, because it will help raise awareness on this very important mechanism of the European Refugee Fund and of the Joint Resettlement Programme that, with the multi-financial framework, is already being put in good tracks. So I'll just give a very brief introduction on who are these refugees that we're talking about, what resettlement is, and what we've tried to achieve with this file, and then pass over the words to Commissioner Malmström and Ambassador Mikkelsen. There are a few million refugees in the world. The UNHCR puts the number at around 8 million refugees. It's the lowest number since a few years back. But not all of the refugees need resettlement. Actually, only a minority of the refugees need resettlement. A large majority of the refugees want to go back to where they have been expelled or persecuted from, to their countries, to their houses. And that is the first durable solution for resettlement, is repatriation when the situation gets more safe in the home country. Another big portion of refugees can and do stay sometimes at the transit countries, with whom sometimes they share linguistic or cultural affinities. But for a minority of the refugees, which are calculated in about 200,000 refugees each year, cannot either go back home, where they would run the risk of still being persecuted or even killed, and they cannot stay in the country where they are. That sometimes is a country that is not a signatory to the Geneva Convention and does not allow them to work. So the only option for these refugees is really to be offered a new life in another country. And this can be done via a global effort where several actors participate. The United States, as is well known, is the country that resettles more refugees in the world, around 80,000 each year. And then we have other actors such as Canada, Australia, even new actors like Brazil and Chile. And in Europe, we have in the Union countries with a long tradition of resettling refugees, such as Sweden and Denmark, and even outside the Union, Norway. So there's a Scandinavian tradition of resettlement. And when we started this process, only 10 out of 27 countries in the Union did resettle refugees. So the Commission had the very good proposal to amend the rules governing the European Refugee Fund, so that we could make them more flexible, more responsive, and that we could attract more member states to resettlement. That was the job that we started in the end of 2009 with the Swedish presidency. We approved the co-decision report in May 2010 in Parliament, and the non-initiative report also in the same date, with some ideas that we thought will be good, will be constructive, also for what comes next, that Commissioner Malmström will talk about, which will be the setting up of a true joint resettlement program. The European Refugee Fund is a budget line. It was important, it served its task, but it needs to be improved, and it needs to be transformed into a true joint European resettlement program. So what we tried to do, we inserted three, with the scope that we had, we inserted three new things. One is modulation, that countries that have not yet started to do resettlement will get extra funding in order to establish sustainable resettlement programs in their countries. And we're happy to know we started with 10. Now we have the commitment by Spain, and also by Bulgaria, and also by Germany, who had done ad hoc resettlements that they wanted to start or restart resettlement under the new rules, which is a very good news. We hope that some other member states may follow, and this is part of exactly the new hard work that we are that we want to start today. The second thing is humanitarian categories and making them clearer and allowing for member states to resettle refugees from anywhere in the world. If they are, we usually say that refugees are the most vulnerable population in the world, but they are the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. Children and women at risk of sexual and physical violence, people who are survivors of violence and torture, people who have illnesses or that need medical treatments that cannot be provided on the refugee camp. And so we have inserted these categories in the file, so that countries can, if they know of cases that need to be resettled anywhere in the world, can resettle these cases and still go to the European Refugee Fund and get funding. And the third new thing is, it's an idea that came from the Commission, is strategic focus, what we call regional priorities. This was the hardest part to solve, and I think it was a good concept to insert. It's the idea that the European Union shall have a strategic focus on some regions of the world that suffer from a more critical situation in refugee terms, but that sometimes are also in our vicinity, and that we can help to solve in a more politically focused and executive way. So these are the three news in the co-decision file that then went to Council, and that we are finally adopting today. Then the idea is to go further than this, to increase numbers, but also increase the quality of integration, and to create a spirit of understanding and shared commitment and work on resettling refugees. It's not common that in these types of problems we can say that there is a problem that can be solved. 200,000 refugees per year seems a lot, but if we think that the Americans resettle 80,000, with Canada, Australia, Brazil, Chile, other countries, we are very close to resettling half of the yearly needs, and the yearly needs are not 200,000 each year, sometimes they are less than that. If Europe does what we are allowed to do in terms of geographical dimension and our possibilities, and we know that now we are in a crisis, but it won't last forever, it is possible to solve the problem of refugees to resettle in the world. And with this hope, well, I think that maybe Commissioner Malmström to speak about the multi-financial framework, and then Ambassador Tauno.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for your strong commitment and hard work on this, Mr. Tavares. I would also like to thank your colleagues in the European Parliament. I understand that in a couple of hours there will be a very strong support for your report, which is a proof of your strong commitment and your hard work, but also of the ability to get a broad consensus around this. I would also like to thank the Danish presidency. Many presidencies have worked with this, but the Danish presidency now have brought it to a very successful end, and that's why we are here today. This is indeed, as Mr. Tavares said, a very good and important program. It is a possibility for the European Union to show solidarity with the most vulnerable of the vulnerable around the world. we can, by offering a new life to these people, really offer them a life, a new life in dignity, protection, and new possibilities. And by having these different regional focus, we could hopefully in the future also maybe contribute to empty a refugee camp or something like that, and that would be a great contribution. We will, of course, continue to support and to encourage the member states to engage in this program, to develop national programs and to pool the resources in this joint European resettlement program. There is funding available for that, and there is also expertise and different cooperation with transport and so on where we can facilitate. And I would really like to encourage member states to engage with this. There is, as you said, an economic crisis going on. We are aware of this, but Europe has a very strong a long tradition of solidarity. It is one of the key values of the European Union, and this is a true moment to show that solidarity and really accept resettle refugees and to engage in a life-saving measure by creating these programs. So I'm really happy today that we have reached this point. It took some time, but now we're here. And again, thanks to everybody who has made it possible, and hopefully this is something that will be seen as a great success for the European Union and its member state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before I pass the floor to Ambassador Tranholm Mikkelsen, I'd like to say something about the Danish presidency. When I approached the Danish presidency in January this year, well, the top priority on our mind here in Parliament was to get this file done. It was not until very recently that I have realized that Denmark, because of its opt-out from the Home Affairs and area, is not benefiting from the European Refugee Fund. So, other than just thanking Denmark for a very efficient and also open-minded work on this file, we also have to add that it was noble and disinterested from Denmark as a presidency to do this, and it may have to do with the fact that Denmark has a tradition on resettlement and knows that it can be well done and that it can work well. Ambassador, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for this opportunity to participate in this press conference on this important issue. It is true that we don't do always press conferences on these occasions, but I think that it is only warranted that we do it on this case. It is a very important step forward, and one which we are very happy falls during the Danish presidency. As both the rapporteur and the commissioner pointed out, this is a file with a long history, and therefore, as a presidency, we certainly cannot take all the credit for the fact that we are now able to conclude it. The credit goes first and foremost to the commissioner and to the rapporteur for having brought this about. But we are very, very happy that it takes place now during the Danish presidency, since for us, resettlement has always been an important element in our policies, and indeed an element which we have also been trying to give an impetus and to bring forward also at the European agenda. And we hope that this can indeed contribute to that happening. That is good for the people involved. It is also good for the host countries which are not able to provide sufficient conditions for these refugees. And we hope that this will be the beginning of a growing tendency to use resettlement as part of our policies here in Europe. And therefore you will also see that this is not the only time that resettlement is being mentioned during the Danish presidency. We also adopted on the 8th of March a set of conclusions on a genuine and practical framework for genuine and practical solidarity. And here this is one of the elements also, is indeed to call on all member states to take this route. And therefore we hope that this step today can be important in itself, which it is, but also could be one step towards this being an even more important element in our policies at EU level. So once again, thank you very much again, Mr. Tavares. I think that you can rightly be proud of what you have achieved here.
We'll open the floor for questions now. Please remember to state your name and the media you work for before asking. Are there any questions? Everything is crystal clear. Thank you very much for assisting to this press conference. Bye.
Okay. Well, we have an e-book that's available. You can find it well here in the room. We have some copies, and it is available also through the internet. The Commission has it in its site, or we will also on my personal website, and it has some quotes from several NGOs and organizations, and also some data on resettlement of refugees. Thank you very much.